All right, listener. Today we're diving into some pretty dark waters, you could say, found footage.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be looking at 8 of the most disturbing cases out there,
Yeah.
um, and try to figure out what makes them so impactful,
Yeah.
But also, what do they tell us about ourselves,
Yeah.
about humanity?
Mm,
These cases, they're all over the place, right? Different decades, different continents,
yeah.
maritime mysteries, true crime, all that stuff.
Hmm.
And each one gives us this like raw, unfiltered look into these moments of fear and violence and despair.
Real raw.
So you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. I think what's so fascinating to me about found footage is that it just bypasses all the usual narratives.
Right.
It's not a documentary. There's no voiceover telling you how to think.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a news report with all that journalistic filtering, you know?
Yeah.
It's like you're stumbling upon a piece of history just completely raw and unvarnished.
Yeah,
You're left to deal with the rawness of what's happening.
exactly. And that rawness, that feeling of like you're right there, that's what makes found footage so compelling,
Oh, for sure.
but also so disturbing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like we're peeking through this crack in reality,
Yep.
witnessing these things we were never meant to see.
Right.
So let's start with case #8, the Open Ocean Massacre.
Oh, okay.
This one starts with a cell phone, just left behind in a taxi in Fiji.
Okay.
And what's on this phone, it's not your typical vacation video.
No.
It's a 10-minute clip of, honestly, like straight out of a nightmare, multiple murders at sea.
Okay.
Yeah. So the footage itself is just chaotic and brutal. You see these 4 men, they're clinging to what's left of this wrecked, like wooden boat.
Mm-hmm.
And they're surrounded by these larger fishing vessels. And then, like, one by one,
Oh, gosh.
they're shot. The audio is a mix of languages. It's hard to make out, but you hear Mandarin, Thai, Vietnamese, all urging the shooters to kill anyone they see.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Wild, like right out of a pirate movie.
Yeah.
But this is real, and it happened. And what's crazy is we're left with this big mystery.
Yeah, like what?
Well, like, where did this even happen?
Yeah.
Some say it was near Fiji. Some say Somalia.
Huh.
We don't know. And who were these guys? Were they pirates? Rival fishermen? Something else?
Right.
We have the footage. We have potential witnesses on at least 4 ships.
Wow.
And yet, no one has been held responsible.
That's incredible. And that's, I guess, where we hit those complexities of maritime law.
Yeah.
The ocean is huge, right?
Hmm.
Jurisdictions are blurry, and getting evidence is a nightmare.
Yeah.
This case, it just shows how tragic it is that crimes at sea, they often go unpunished. Victims and their families, they get no closure.
No justice.
No justice. It makes you think about how far law enforcement can really reach in international waters.
Yeah.
I mean, if something this brutal can be caught on video and still go unpunished,
Right.
what does that say about us?
Yeah.
About our ability to enforce justice on the high seas?
It is a chilling thought. It's like the vastness of the ocean just swallows up any accountability.
It does. It really does.
Okay. So we've just looked at the lawlessness of the open ocean.
Yeah.
Let's move to a tragedy that happened much closer to shore.
Okay.
Case #7. The sinking of the MV Sewell.
Right.
The South Korean ferry, it capsized back in 2014. It killed over 300 people,
Oh, wow.
most of them high school students, on a field trip.
Oh, jeez.
Now, the found footage, in this case, it comes from one of those students,
Oh.
a 17-year-old boy who documented the entire thing on his phone.
Oh, my gosh.
The footage starts out lighthearted, just teenagers being teenagers, joking around,
Yeah.
completely unaware of the danger,
Right.
But as the ferry starts to tilt, the water starts rising. The mood changes really fast.
Yeah, but...
I've seen some of the footage, and it is absolutely heart-wrenching.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
You hear the fear in their voices. You hear them realizing something's terribly wrong.
Oh, God.
They start sending farewell messages to their families, clinging to each other, trying to laugh it off, even though it's becoming clear that they might not make it.
Oh, man. That's hard to hear.
It's like we're right there with them, feeling their fear and desperation as it's happening.
Yeah.
And the tragedy, it doesn't end with the sinking, right?
Oh, no.
The captain and crew, they were charged with negligence, abandonment,
Right.
adding another layer of pain and injustice to this horrific event.
It's awful. The Sewell case, with all that personal footage, it sparked a huge outcry in South Korea.
Mhm.
It raised all these questions about safety, about who's responsible, and the grief, the whole nation was grieving, especially for those young lives lost.
Yeah.
It makes us think about how we respond to disasters, how we cope, How we seek comfort and meaning in the face of something unimaginable.
A lot to process. And it highlights how technology has become such a big part of our lives, especially in moments of crisis.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, listener, for our next case, we're heading into true crime territory with the disappearance that's puzzled investigators for years.
Okay.
Case #6. The disappearance of Susan Powell.
Oh, right.
This one's full of twists and turns, and at the heart of it is a video that Susan made herself.
Really?
A video that would become a chilling piece of evidence.
Okay, so what happened?
Susan vanished from her Utah home back in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
She left behind 2 young sons and her husband Joshua, who very quickly became the prime suspect.
I see.
Now, what's eerie is that Susan, she seemed to know she was going to disappear.
What?
She made a video documenting her home, her things,
Wow.
even saying that if anything were to happen to her, it may not be an accident.
Oh my God. Chilling.
It's like a premonition.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets even more disturbing. Investigators found blood in the house, a wet carpet that had been cleaned recently, and Susan's hidden will.
A will.
Yeah, she expressed fear for her safety and named specific people she thought were a threat to her.
That's disturbing.
It paints this picture of a woman trapped, trying to leave clues, hoping someone would connect the dots if she disappeared.
Yeah, it's like she was trying to scream for help without actually screaming.
Exactly. And what makes this even more tragic is the ending. It ended in familicide.
Familicide? What's that?
It's when someone kills their own family members.
Mm.
It's often about control or revenge.
Oh, wow.
In this case, Joshua, after years of suspicion, he killed his 2 sons and himself in a house fire.
Oh my God.
He set the fire himself.
That's awful.
Yeah, and he left behind more questions than answers.
So tragic. And you said this is, sadly, not that uncommon in cases of domestic abuse.
It's a terrible pattern we see, sadly.
The Susan Powell case, it really shows us that the home, which should be a safe place, can be the most dangerous.
Yeah.
And makes us think about how hidden domestic violence can be, the subtle signs we might miss, and the awful consequences when these situations escalate. That video Susan made, with her fear, it reminds us to listen to people when they express fear, take threats seriously, and offer help to those who might be trapped.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most disturbing truths, they're hidden in plain sight, captured on home videos meant for no one's eyes but our own. Now let's switch gears for a bit.
Okay.
Let's look at a case that brings up some tough questions about self-defense and the right to protect your property.
Okay.
Case #5. The basement killings of Byron Smith.
I think I've heard of this one.
Yeah, Byron Smith was a homeowner in Minnesota. He had been robbed, like, over and over.
Oh, wow.
He was frustrated. The cops weren't doing enough. He felt vulnerable. So he decided to take matters into his own hands.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, he set a trap for burglars, turned his basement into a, fortified bunker, waited in the dark with a rifle.
That's intense.
It is. And then these 2 teenagers, Hale Kiefer and Nick Brady, they broke in. He ambushed them, shot and killed them both.
Oh, wow.
And what makes this case so disturbing is that Smith, he recorded the whole thing.
He recorded it.
Yeah, security cameras and audio.
Wow.
You hear the teens break in, the gunshots, even Smith talking to himself, like
Mhm.
before, during, and after.
What was he saying?
Chilling stuff about what he's going to do, describing the sounds of their bodies falling.
God, that's just...
It's like a horror movie, but it's real life, and the director, the actor, the killer, it's all the same guy.
Right.
The footage, it sparked this huge debate.
Yeah, like, was it self-defense or was it murder?
Exactly. Where's the line between protecting yourself and becoming the attacker?
Right, right.
The law says you can defend yourself, but the force has to match the threat.
Of course.
And in Smith's case, the jury said it was premeditated murder.
So they thought he was planning to kill them.
Yeah. They said he went beyond protecting himself. He set a trap. He waited for them. He wanted them dead.
That's hezzy.
It shows us that even when we're scared and angry, we can't just ignore the law. There's a justice system for a reason. When we bypass it, we risk becoming the very thing we're afraid of.
Yeah, I see that. This case also makes us think about how being a victim over and over again can change someone.
Trauma, yeah.
How does being robbed affect your mind? How does fear and anger affect your judgment and lead to violence?
Tough questions.
They are no easy answers.
Okay, listener, before we move on, let's pause for a second and think about what we've learned so far.
Okay.
What strikes me is how each of these cases, even though they're all different, they all have this one thing in common.
What's that?
Found footage. It pulls back the curtain on these hidden truths.
It's like we're getting a secret look into lives and events we were never supposed to see.
Yeah.
And while the footage itself can be disturbing, what's really unsettling is what it shows us about human nature,
Right.
about the good and the bad that's inside all of us.
It's like these videos offer a look into the dark side of humanity, places we don't want to think about,
Yeah.
but we can't turn away once we've seen them. Right. And speaking of the dark side, listener, get ready, because our next case takes us deep into the world of a serial killer.
Okay, hit me.
This guy, his crimes weren't just brutal. He carefully documented them on what he called his wedding tape.
A wedding tape? What?
He's #4 Maury Travis.
Okay.
This guy terrorized St. Louis, Missouri from 2000 to 2002. He preyed on vulnerable women, mostly sex workers.
Oh, man.
What makes this case so disturbing is that wedding tape.
The name itself is just creepy.
I know, right? Like, what kind of person called their recordings of violence a wedding tape? Like, he's trying to make his crimes romantic, like a twisted ceremony.
I get what you mean. It's so messed up.
And that's the unsettling part, the planning, the staging. Like, it's some kind of sick play.
Right.
The wedding tape shows him tying up, torturing, killing his victims,
Oh, God.
all while narrating, adding captions, even putting music to it.
Jeez. Like he's making a movie for some imaginary audience.
Exactly. It's just horrifying to think someone could enjoy hurting others so much that they want to record it and keep it.
Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around that level of evil.
I know. The footage is tough to watch, not just because of the violence, but because he treats his victims like objects, just things to play with.
Dehumanizing them.
And the wedding tape, it wasn't just a record of his crimes.
Right.
It led investigators to his torture chamber.
Oh, God. A torture chamber.
Yeah, in his basement. It was a nightmare.
Oh, it's in there?
Restraints, whips, a stun gun, all this stuff. The walls and floor were stained with blood, layers of paint trying to hide it all.
A physical manifestation of all that darkness.
It was. And to make it even worse, Travis killed himself in jail.
Oh, no. Seriously.
Yeah, he denied his victims and their families any justice.
Awful. He left behind all these questions, too. How many victims were there? What made him do this? Why film it?
Right. Was it about control, wanting to relive it, or something even worse?
Yeah. That's a question that haunts people who study serial killers. What pushes someone over that edge? What turns violence and cruelty into their whole way of being?
The wedding tape, even though it's so disturbing, it gives us a look into the mind of a sadist. But it doesn't give us any easy answers.
I hear that. It's a stark reminder that the human mind is capable of incredible darkness.
And that evil can look just like anyone else.
Right. It could be your next door neighbor.
Speaking of neighbors, our next case starts with something totally normal.
Okay.
A dad's using a baby monitor to check on his newborn baby.
Right.
But what he sees isn't his own kid. It's a live feed from the house next door.
What? No way.
Yeah, and what he sees is horrifying. Child abuse.
Oh, God.
This is the House of Horrors case. It shocked the Czech Republic and showed how twisted people can be.
What happened?
The baby monitor footage showed two young boys, Andre and Jacob, being tortured by their own mother and aunt.
Tortured? Like how?
Beatings, starved, mentally messed with. They were even forced to eat their own vomit.
Oh, my God. Those poor kids.
It's hard to imagine what they went through. And it gets worse. It wasn't just the mother and aunt.
There was someone else.
There was someone else involved, someone people thought was their 13-year-old adopted daughter.
Oh, wow.
But it turned out to be something much darker.
What do you mean?
The daughter, Anika, was actually a 33-year-old woman.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Her real name is Barbora Skrylova. She was part of this cult-like group with this messed up belief in purification through suffering.
That's sick.
It is. Skrylova, she manipulated the sisters, convinced them that hurting the boys was a way to discipline them, to cleanse them of their sin.
That's insane. And she disguised herself as a kid.
Yep, to manipulate them and to avoid getting caught.
Wow. This case really shows how vulnerable people can be exploited and how cults can twist your view of reality and justify cruelty by calling it spiritual or moral.
Exactly. It highlights how important critical thinking is, questioning authority, and recognizing the signs of cult activity.
Yeah, like not just blindly trusting someone because they seem like they have all the answers.
Right. This case reminds us that evil doesn't always look scary. Sometimes it's disguised as something we trust, something that promises comfort or belonging.
Yeah, that makes it even scarier. You never know who to trust.
And that's what makes cases like this so unsettling. They make us question our sense of security. They show us that darkness can sneak into even the places we think are safe.
It's true. Our next case #2, takes us to a small town in Idaho.
Okay.
a town that was rocked by a brutal murder.
Oh, jeez.
A murder planned and carried out by two teenagers obsessed with violence.
Teenagers.
Yeah. They were driven by this twisted desire for fame.
Wow. This is the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddard, right?
Yep. Cassie Jo was 16. She was house sitting for her aunt and uncle. She invited some friends over, and during the night, two of them, Brian Draper and Tori Adamsick, stabbed her to death.
Brutal.
It was. What's disturbing is how planned it was and how senseless the motive was.
Right. What was their motive?
Draper and Adamsick, they planned the whole thing. They even filmed themselves talking about it beforehand.
They did.
They were obsessed with school shootings, horror movies, and they said they wanted to kill just because.
Jeez, like they wanted to copy the violence they saw in movies.
Yeah, like they were trying to make their sick fantasies real.
Wow. And they documented the whole thing?
They did. The planning, the murder, everything.
And the footage.
It's chilling.
Yeah.
Not just because of the violence itself, but because they showed no remorse.
Right.
They were cold, detached, almost casual about taking a life. It was like they thought the murder was a performance, a way to become famous, infamous.
Jeez.
The footage they made, it's a twisted record of their messed up view of the world.
It's terrifying. This case makes us think about how the media affects young people, especially those who are drawn to violence or can't tell fantasy from reality.
For sure. It also makes us think about the warning signs we might miss.
Like, were there things in Draper and Adamsick's behavior that their parents or teachers should have noticed?
Right. We need to pay attention, not just for our own safety, but for the safety of everyone around us. We need to know the signs of violence, speak up when we see something's wrong, and offer support to those who might be struggling with dark thoughts.
Absolutely. The Cassie Jo Stoddard case is a tragedy that shows us that evil doesn't always look obvious.
Right. It doesn't wear a big sign.
It can be quiet, hidden, right next door.
And then it explodes into violence.
Speaking of hidden dangers, our next case takes us back to the open ocean.
Back to the sea.
Yeah, to a mystery that's baffled investigators for years.
What happened?
The Open Ocean Massacre. It's a case full of unknowns.
I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
It started with a cell phone left in a taxi in Fiji.
Okay.
The phone had a video on it that shocked everyone.
What was on the video?
The video is about 10 minutes long,
Mm.
and it shows just unimaginable brutality.
Oh, no.
4 men are clinging to this wrecked wooden boat. They're surrounded by bigger fishing vessels, and then, one by one, they get shot.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
It's chaos. The audio is a mix of languages, all yelling, kill, kill.
Jeez, it's like something out of history, like a pirate attack.
Exactly. But this happened recently, not hundreds of years ago. And the most disturbing thing is, we have no answers.
You mean they never found out who did it?
Even with the video, even with potential witnesses on those ships, no one was ever held responsible.
Unbelievable.
We don't even know for sure where it happened. Near Fiji. Off Somalia.
It's like the ocean just swallowed up the truth.
It did. It's a chilling reminder of how hard it is to get justice on the high seas. The Open Ocean Massacre case shows us how difficult it is to investigate crimes in international waters.
Jurisdiction, right. Whose laws apply.
Exactly. Plus, it's hard to get evidence.
And sometimes, even with a video, the bad guys get away.
It's a reminder that the world can be a dangerous place,
Yeah,
and justice isn't always served.
true. Now, our last case, case #1, brings us to a place that should be safe.
What's that?
A place where young people should feel protected. But as we'll see, danger can be closer than we think, even in familiar places. This is the case of Lauren Giddings.
Lauren Giddings.
She was a bright law school graduate.
Okay.
Her life was cut short by a neighbor who became obsessed with her.
Oh, God.
Lauren lived in what seemed like a safe apartment complex in Macon, Georgia.
Okay.
She had friends, fellow students around her, but her next-door neighbor, Stephen McDaniel, who was also a law school graduate, he had a dark secret.
Who was it?
He was secretly filming Lauren from inside her bedroom.
Oh, wow. They found this footage after Lauren disappeared, and it's just terrifying. It shows us that even when we think we're safe, we're not.
That's so true. You just never know.
Someone we see every day, someone we might think is a friend, could have dark thoughts, dangerous intentions.
Right. We can't always see what's lurking beneath the surface.
The footage, along with other evidence, showed that McDaniel was a stalker. His obsession turned violent.
Oh.
He killed Lauren and tried to hide what he did by dismembering her body. It's a case that reminds us to trust our gut feelings and to take steps to protect ourselves, even from people we think we know.
Absolutely.
The Lauren Giddings case It's a chilling reminder of how vulnerable we all are, even in our own homes. And with that, our deep dive into these disturbing found footage cases comes to a close. But before we go, I want to touch on something that's been running through all of these cases.
What's that?
The role of technology. It's like a double-edged sword, isn't it?
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. Technology can be used to show wrongdoing, to expose the truth. But it can also be used to violate privacy and exploit people. We've seen this tension in almost every story we've talked about today.
Yeah, I see what you mean, like with the MV Sewell footage.
Exactly. The raw emotion of those students facing death. It shows the human spirit, the need to connect, to leave a record. But it also raises questions about whether it's right to share such personal moments of grief.
It's a tough one. Where do we draw the line between the public's need to know and a person's right to privacy, especially when they're vulnerable?
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
And it gets even more complicated when we think about why some of this footage was created in the first place.
Right. It's not all accidental, is it?
Take the Maury Travis case. His wedding tape wasn't something he just happened to record. He did it on purpose. It was his way of showing off his crimes, of creating his own sick legacy.
It's hard to grasp that level of darkness, that someone could get pleasure out of causing pain and then want to keep a record of it.
I know. It shows just how dark the human mind can be.
It does. But as disturbing as it is, that footage helps us understand serial killers.
Yeah, we get a glimpse into their minds.
It shows us how much fantasy and control play a role in those acts. The careful planning, the coldness, the way they stage the crimes like it's a play.
It's like we're looking into the darkest parts of their minds, places where logic and empathy don't exist.
It's like a whole other world, a world we don't want to know about, but maybe we need to.
It's tempting to just look away from that darkness, pretend it's not there. But I think there's something important about facing it, about trying to understand what makes people do good or evil things.
I agree. These cases, as unsettling as they are, they give us a chance to learn and reflect.
Yeah, they make us ask hard questions about ourselves, about society, about good and evil. Like, why are some people violent? What role does mental illness play? How do social and cultural things contribute?
Those are big questions.
They are, and there are no easy answers. But found footage, because it's so raw and real, it gives us a place to start. It gives us a look into the minds of people who commit violence or find themselves in these terrible situations.
It's like trying to put together a puzzle.
Right. We have these pieces of information, these clues, and we're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense.
And in doing that, we have to face our own biases.
Our own ideas about good and evil, guilt and innocence, even truth.
Exactly. Found footage doesn't give us simple answers, but it makes us think more deeply about these things. It reminds us that the world is a complicated and unpredictable place.
The darkness can be hiding anywhere.
And that even when terrible things happen, there are things to learn, insights to gain, and maybe even ways to prevent them from happening again.
So, listener, as we finish up our look at these disturbing found footage cases, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
These stories are definitely unsettling, but they also show us how resilient humans can be.
I see that.
We see it in the bravery of the students on the MV Sewell, how they faced their fate.
Right.
We see it in Susan Powell's courage to document her fears just in case. We see it in the tireless work of law enforcement to bring justice to victims, and in all the people and organizations working to prevent violence and help those who've been hurt by it.
That's true. There's good out there, too. People fighting back against the darkness.
Exactly. These cases, even though they're disturbing, they remind us that even in the darkest times, there's hope, there's courage, and there's a shared desire to understand, to heal, and to make the world a better place.
That's a good note to end on. Don't let the darkness win.
Right. So, listener, keep asking questions, keep looking for answers, and keep talking about these things. These stories are important.
They are. They make us think, they challenge us, and they can inspire us to build a world that's more just and compassionate.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next week with another case. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the worst parts of humanity.
Yeah.
Places we don't want to admit exist, but we can't ignore them once we've seen them.
Right.
And speaking of dark places, listener, brace yourself.
Oh, boy.
Our next case goes deep into the world of a serial killer.
Okay.
This guy's crimes were not only brutal,
Yeah.
he meticulously documented them
He did.
on what he called his wedding tape.
Wedding tape.
Case #4 Maury Travis.
Okay, I've heard that name.
This guy terrorized St. Louis, Missouri,
Yeah?
Between 2000 and 2002,
Okay.
he preyed on vulnerable women,
Mm-hmm.
mostly sex workers.
Oh, that's terrible.
What makes his case stand out, what makes it so disturbing,
Yeah.
is this so-called wedding tape.
Wedding tape.
The name itself is just,
Yeah, it's creepy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of person
Yeah.
refers to their recordings of violence that way?
I know.
It's like he's trying to romanticize his crimes
It's weird.
to create this twisted ceremony
Wow.
out of his victim's suffering.
That's messed up.
And that's what's so unsettling about this case.
Yeah.
The level of planning
Mm-hmm.
and this almost theatrical staging of the crimes.
Right.
The wedding tape
Mm.
shows Travis tying up, torturing,
God.
and ultimately killing his victims.
Yeah, awful.
All while narrating his actions,
Seriously.
adding captions,
Mhm.
even musical accompaniment.
It's like he's making a snuff film,
Yeah.
but for no one.
Right. It's like a testament to his own depravity.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a horrifying thought
Yeah.
that someone could get so much pleasure
Mm-hmm.
from hurting others
I know.
that they would want to document it,
Right.
preserve it.
It's hard to understand.
It's a level of evil that's hard to wrap your head around.
Definitely.
The footage is incredibly difficult to watch.
I bet.
Not just because of the violence itself,
Right.
but because of how he dehumanizes the victims.
Right.
They're reduced to objects,
Yeah.
playthings for his sadistic desires.
It's awful.
The wedding tape not only served as a record of his crimes,
Right.
it became a crucial piece of evidence,
Oh.
leading investigators to his torture chamber
Torture chamber.
in the basement of his home.
Oh, geez.
It was a chilling scene.
I bet.
The basement was equipped with restraints,
Yeah.
whips, a stun gun,
Oh, wow.
all the tools of his twisted trade.
Oh.
The walls and floors were stained with blood. Layers of paint hastily applied.
Trying to cover it up.
Yeah, in a futile attempt to conceal the horrors that had taken place there.
Wow, that's heavy.
And tragically, the case took another dark turn.
Oh, no. What happened?
Travis committed suicide in jail,
He did.
denying justice to his victims and their families.
Oh, that's so awful.
He left behind a legacy of unanswered questions.
Like what?
How many victims were there?
Right.
What drove him to commit such horrific acts?
Yeah.
And why film them?
Yeah. Why?
Was it a need for control?
Maybe.
A desire to relive the experience?
Possibly.
Or something even more sinister?
It's a question that haunts anyone who studies serial killers. You know,
Yeah.
what makes them cross that line?
Hmm.
What makes them embrace violence and cruelty as a way of life?
Right.
The wedding tape, with all its disturbing details, it gives us a glimpse into the mind of a sadist.
Yeah.
But it doesn't give us any easy answers.
It's a stark reminder that the human mind is capable of profound darkness,
Definitely.
and that evil can often hide behind a seemingly ordinary facade. Speaking of facades, our next case,
Okay.
case #3, starts with a pretty innocent scenario.
Okay. What is it?
A father's using a baby monitor
Yeah.
to check on his newborn,
Okay.
but what he sees isn't his own child. It's a live feed from a neighboring house,
No way.
a feed that reveals a horrifying scene of child abuse.
Oh, God.
This is the House of Horrors case,
House of Horrors.
a case that shocked the Czech Republic
I've heard of this one.
and exposed a disturbing web of manipulation and cruelty.
What happened?
The footage from the baby monitor
Yeah.
showed two young boys,
Okay.
Andre and Jacob,
Okay.
being systematically tortured by their mother, Clara Maurova,
Their own mother.
and her sister, Katerina.
Oh, my God.
The abuse was relentless.
Like what?
Beatings, starvation, psychological torment.
That's so awful.
They even forced the boys to eat their own vomit.
Oh, that's just sick.
It's hard to imagine the level of suffering those poor boys endured.
It's unimaginable.
What's even more disturbing is that the abuse wasn't just limited to the mother and aunt.
There's someone else.
There was another person involved.
Who?
Someone who was initially believed to be the sister's 13-year-old adopted daughter,
Okay.
but turned out to be something far more sinister.
What do you mean?
The daughter, known as Annika, was actually a 33-year-old woman
Wait, what?
named Barbara Skrylova,
Jaburia Skrylova.
a member of a cult-like group
Cult.
that espoused a twisted ideology of purification through suffering.
Oh, wow.
Skrylova manipulated the sisters,
How?
convincing them that the abuse was a form of discipline,
Discipline.
a way to cleanse the boys of their sins.
Oh my God, that's messed up.
She even disguised herself as a child
She did.
to further her manipulation and evade detection.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's a chilling example of how easily vulnerable people can be exploited.
Yeah.
How cults can warp perceptions of reality
Right.
and justify acts of cruelty under the guise of spiritual or moral righteousness.
It's scary how convincing they can be.
The House of Horrors case raises questions about the psychological mechanisms of brainwashing, the power of groupthink,
Yeah.
and the insidious nature of abuse,
Right.
especially when it's disguised as something else.
Like discipline or love.
It also highlights the importance of critical thinking,
Yeah.
of questioning authority,
Mm-hmm.
and of being aware of the warning signs of cult activity.
Like, what are some signs?
This case is a reminder that evil doesn't always wear a mask.
Right.
Sometimes it hides in plain sight,
Yeah, where you least expect it.
disguised as something we trust,
Mm.
something that promises comfort or belonging.
It's a tough lesson to learn.
And that's what makes cases like this so unsettling.
Yeah.
They chip away at our sense of security,
It makes you wonder if you can trust anyone.
reminding us that darkness can infiltrate
Mm.
even the most seemingly safe and familiar spaces.
You think you're safe, and then something like this happens.
Our next case #2, takes us to a small town in Idaho.
Small town.
A town that was shaken to its core by a brutal murder.
Oh, no.
A murder that was planned and executed by two teenagers,
Teenagers.
obsessed with violence
Wow.
and fueled by a twisted desire for notoriety.
Notoriety.
This is the murder of Cassie Jo Stoddard.
Cassie Jo Stoddard.
Cassie Jo was a 16-year-old high school student
Okay.
who was house-sitting for her aunt and uncle.
Mm-hmm.
She invited some friends over,
Yeah.
and during the course of the evening,
Okay.
two of them,
Yeah.
Brian Draper and Torrey Adamachik,
Brian and Tori.
brutally stabbed her to death.
Oh, my God. That's horrible.
What's so disturbing about this case
Yeah.
is the premeditation
Okay.
and the seemingly senseless motive behind the murder.
Right. Like, why?
Draper and Adamachik had planned the killing,
They planned it.
even filming themselves, talking about their intentions beforehand.
Oh, wow.
They expressed a fascination with school shootings,
School shootings.
horror movies,
Horror movies.
and a desire to kill just because.
Just because. That's chilling.
It's like they were trying to emulate the violence they consumed in media,
Yeah.
to turn their dark fantasies into reality.
It's like they couldn't separate fantasy from reality.
And they documented it all.
Everything.
Their planning, the murder itself, the aftermath.
Oh, God.
The footage is chilling,
I bet.
not just because of the violence,
Yeah.
but because of the perpetrator's lack of remorse.
Right.
Their cold detachment, their almost casual attitude towards taking a life.
Like it didn't matter to them.
It's like they saw the murder as a performance,
A performance.
a way to gain notoriety,
Notoriety.
to become infamous.
That's messed up.
The footage they created became a twisted testament to their warped sense of reality,
Yeah.
a document of their descent into darkness.
It's scary how easily some people can lose their humanity.
This case raises questions about the influence of media on young minds,
Mm-hmm.
particularly those who might be susceptible to violent ideologies
Right.
or who struggle to distinguish fantasy from reality.
It's a tough balance.
It also forces us to think about the warning signs that might have been missed.
Like, what could have been done differently?
Were there any indications in Draper and Adamachik's behavior
Yeah.
that might have alerted parents, teachers, or friends to the danger they posed?
Right. Right.
It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant,
Mm-hmm.
not just for our own safety,
Yeah.
but for the well-being of our communities.
Yeah, that's...
We need to be aware of the signs of potential violence,
Mm.
to be willing to speak up when we see something concerning,
Yeah.
and to offer support and resources to those who might be struggling with dark thoughts or violent impulses.
I think that's so important.
The Cassie Jo Stoddard case is a tragic reminder that evil doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures or obvious signs.
Right.
It can be quiet, insidious,
Yeah.
and lurking right next door,
Just waiting to stress.
hiding in plain sight until it explodes in a moment of horrifying violence.
It's a scary thought.
Speaking of hidden dangers, our next case #8, takes us back to the open ocean.
Back to the ocean.
Yeah,
Okay.
to a mystery that has baffled investigators for years.
What is it?
The Open Ocean Massacre, as it's come to be known,
Okay.
is a case shrouded in ambiguity and unanswered questions.
Sounds intriguing.
It all started with a cell phone,
A cell phone?
left behind in a taxi in Fiji,
Fiji.
a phone containing a video
Okay.
that would send shockwaves through the maritime community.
What was on the video?
The video, about 10 minutes long,
Okay.
captures a scene of unimaginable brutality.
Oh, no.
4 men, clinging desperately to the wreckage of a small wooden boat,
Okay.
are surrounded by larger fishing vessels.
Okay.
Then, one by one, they're shot, their
Okay.
bodies falling limp into the water.
That's awful.
The footage is chaotic and disturbing.
I can imagine.
The audio, a jumble of languages,
Yeah.
all urging the shooters to kill.
It's like something out of a nightmare.
It's like witnessing a pirate attack.
Yeah.
But in the 21st century, a time when we'd like to believe such barbarity no longer exists.
It's a reminder that the world isn't as civilized as we like to think.
What makes this case so unsettling is the lack of answers.
Like they don't know who did it.
Despite the video evidence,
Yeah.
despite potential witnesses on at least 4 ships,
Wow.
no one has been held accountable for these killings.
That's unbelievable.
The location of the murders remains disputed.
They don't even know where it happened.
Near Fiji or off the coast of Somalia.
Wow.
Were these pirates?
Could be.
Rival fishermen?
Maybe.
Something else entirely.
It's a mystery.
It's almost as if the vastness of the ocean itself has swallowed up the truth,
Yeah, it's like it never happened.
leaving us with a chilling reminder of the limits of justice on the high seas.
Right. Like who's in charge out there?
The Open Ocean Massacre case highlights the challenges of investigating crimes in international waters, the jurisdictional complexities,
Right. Whose laws apply?
the difficulty of gathering evidence,
Evidence can be lost so easily at sea.
and the frustrating reality that sometimes, even with video evidence,
Yeah.
the perpetrators escape punishment.
That's so frustrating.
It's a reminder that the world is a vast and often unpredictable place where darkness can lurk in unexpected corners
Yeah, you never know.
and where justice is not always served.
It's a hard truth to accept.
Now, our final case, case #1, brings us closer to home,
Okay.
to a seemingly safe environment,
Okay.
a place where young people should feel secure and protected.
Right.
But as we'll see, even in the most familiar of places,
Yeah.
danger can lurk closer than we think.
That's a scary thought.
This is the case of Lauren Giddings,
Lauren Giddings.
a bright and promising law school graduate
Okay.
whose life was tragically cut short
Oh.
by a neighbor whose obsession turned deadly.
Neighbor.
Lauren lived in what seemed like a safe apartment complex
Okay.
in Macon, Georgia,
Macon, Georgia.
surrounded by friends and fellow students.
Okay.
But her next-door neighbor,
Yeah.
Stephen McDaniel,
Stephen McDaniel.
also a law school graduate,
Okay.
harbored a dark secret.
What was it?
He had been secretly filming Lauren
Filming her.
from inside her bedroom.
Oh my God.
The discovery of this footage
Yeah.
after Lauren's disappearance
Okay.
sent chills down my spine.
I bet.
It's a stark reminder that even in seemingly secure environments,
Yeah.
we are vulnerable.
We are.
That someone we might see every day,
Right.
someone we might even consider a friend,
Yeah.
could be harboring dark desires and dangerous intentions.
It's terrifying to think about.
The footage, along with other evidence,
Mm-hmm.
painted a picture of a stalker whose obsession escalated into violence.
Oh, wow.
McDaniel, fueled by his twisted desires,
Yeah.
killed Lauren and dismembered her body
He dismembered her.
in a desperate attempt to cover up his actions.
Oh my God. That's awful.
It's a case that reminds us to be vigilant,
Mm-hmm.
to trust our instincts,
Right.
and to take steps to protect ourselves,
Yeah.
even for those we think we know.
It's hard to be suspicious of everyone.
The Lauren Giddings case, with its chilling reminder of the vulnerability we all face,
Yeah.
brings our exploration of disturbing found footage to a close.
It's been a heavy journey.
It has.
A lot to think about.
But before we go, I want to touch on something that's been a theme throughout these cases.
What's that?
The role of technology.
Technology.
It's like a double-edged sword, isn't it?
How so?
Think about it.
Okay.
Technology can be used to document and expose wrongdoing,
Mm-hmm.
but it can also be a tool for invasion of privacy and exploitation.
Right. Like a surveillance state.
And as we've seen throughout our deep dive into these disturbing found footage cases,
Yeah.
that tension is present in almost every story.
I see what you mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about the MV Sewell footage.
Right.
The raw emotion captured by those students as they face their own mortality.
It's powerful footage.
It's a testament to the human spirit, the instinct to connect, to leave a record,
Yeah.
even in the face of unimaginable fear.
It's amazing how resilient people can be.
But it also raises questions about the ethics of sharing such intimate moments of grief and despair.
Right, like who owns that footage?
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah,
And one that we as a society are still grappling with.
for sure.
Where do we draw the line between the public's right to know
Mm-hmm.
and the individual's right to privacy,
Yeah.
especially in moments of vulnerability?
It's a tough question.
And that line becomes even more blurred when we consider the motivations behind the creation of some of this footage.
Right, like why was it recorded in the first place?
Take the Mareed Travis case, for example.
Okay.
His wedding tape wasn't a spontaneous recording.
No.
It was a deliberate act of documentation,
Yeah.
a way for him to revel in his crimes,
Right, to relive them.
to create a twisted legacy of his own making.
It's sick.
It's a chilling thought
Yeah.
that someone could derive so much pleasure from inflicting pain on others
I know.
to the point of wanting to document and preserve it.
It's beyond comprehension.
It speaks to a level of depravity that's hard to comprehend.
Definitely.
And yet, as disturbing as it is,
Yeah.
that footage provides invaluable insights into the mind of a serial killer.
It does.
It helps us understand the role that fantasy and control play in these horrific acts, the meticulous planning,
Right.
the cold detachment,
Yeah.
the almost theatrical staging of the crimes.
It's like they're putting on a show.
It's like we're looking through a keyhole
Yeah.
into the darkest recesses of the human psyche,
The darkest corners of the mind.
a place where logic and empathy have been replaced by something far more sinister.
Scary thought.
And while it's tempting to turn away from such darkness,
Yeah. Who wants to look at that?
to pretend that it doesn't exist,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's value in confronting it,
There is.
in trying to understand the forces that shape human behavior,
Yeah.
both good and evil.
You need to understand both sides.
You're right.
Yeah.
These cases, unsettling as they are,
Mm-hmm.
offer a unique opportunity for reflection and learning.
They do.
They force us to ask uncomfortable questions about ourselves,
Yeah.
about our society, about the very nature of good and evil.
Right. Like what makes someone do these things?
Why do some individuals resort to violence?
Mm-hmm.
What role does mental illness play?
Yeah.
How do social and cultural factors contribute?
It's complex.
These are complex questions with no easy answers.
I agree.
But found footage, with its raw, unfiltered lens,
Yeah.
provides a starting point,
He does.
a glimpse into the minds and motivations of those who commit acts of violence, or who find themselves caught in extraordinary, often tragic circumstances.
It's like a window into their world.
It's like a puzzle,
A puzzle.
a series of fragmented clues that we try to piece together
Right.
to make sense of the senseless.
Just try to find meaning in the chaos.
And in that process of piecing together the puzzle,
Yeah.
we often confront our own biases,
Oh,
our own assumptions about good and evil, about guilt and innocence,
Yeah.
about the very nature of truth.
Truth can be hard to find.
Found footage doesn't offer easy answers,
No, it doesn't.
but it forces us to engage with these questions on a deeper level.
It makes us think critically.
It reminds us that the world is a complex and often unpredictable place,
Literally.
that darkness can lurk in unexpected corners,
Yeah. Anywhere.
and that even in the face of tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
there are lessons to be learned,
There are.
insights to be gained,
We can learn from these tragedies.
and perhaps ways to prevent similar events from happening again.
Hopefully.
So, listener, as we wrap up our deep dive into these disturbing found footage cases,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this thought.
What's that?
While these stories are undeniably unsettling,
They are.
they also offer a glimpse into the resilience of the human spirit.
Resilient.
We see it in the bravery of those students on the MV Soul,
Oh, yeah.
facing their fate with a mixture of fear and defiance.
That's powerful.
We see it in Susan Powell's determination to document her fears, to leave a record in case the worst were to happen.
Right, like a message in a bottle.
We see it in the tireless efforts of law enforcement to seek justice for victims,
Yeah.
and in the countless individuals and organizations working to prevent violence and support those who have been affected by it.
There are a lot of good people out there doing important work.
These cases, disturbing as they are,
Yeah.
remind us that even in the darkest of moments, there is hope,
There
is courage,
Yeah.
and there is a collective desire to understand,
I understand.
to heal,
To heal.
and to create a world where such tragedies are less likely to occur.
That's a beautiful thought.
So, listener, keep asking questions,
Yeah.
keep seeking answers, and keep the conversation going.
Don't let it die down.
These stories matter.
They do.
They have the power to inform,
To inform.
to challenge,
A challenge.
and to inspire us to create a more just and compassionate world.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure. It makes you think, even in places that seem safe,
Yeah.
danger can be right there.
It's a case that really forces us to face that.
Mm-hmm.
That even in places we think are secure, danger can be lurking closer than we realize.
Absolutely.
And what makes the Lauren Giddings case even more unsettling
Yeah.
is how technology played a part,
Right.
both in McDaniel's, creepy voyeurism,
Mm-hmm.
and in how they caught him.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
It really is.
Technology,
Yeah.
it can be used to show wrongdoing, to expose the truth,
Yeah.
but it can also be used to invade privacy, exploit people.
For sure.
And we've seen that tension in pretty much every story we've talked about today.
It's a theme for sure.
Exactly.
Think about the MV Sewell footage.
Right, yeah.
The raw emotion of those students
Yeah.
as they're facing death.
It's powerful.
It is.
It shows the human spirit,
Mm-hmm.
the instinct to connect, to leave a record,
Yeah.
even when they're terrified.
Yeah.
But it also makes you wonder,
Yeah.
is it right to share those personal moments of grief and despair?
It's a tough question.
It's a tough call.
Where do we draw the line
Exactly.
between the public's right to know
Mm-hmm.
and an individual's right to privacy?
Especially when they're so vulnerable.
Yeah, it's a tricky balance.
And that line gets even blurrier
Yeah.
when we think about why some of this footage was made in the first place.
Right. Not all of it was accidental.
Take the Murray Travis case.
Okay.
His wedding tape wasn't something he just happened to record.
No, definitely not.
It was deliberate.
Yeah.
It was his way of,
Mm.
reveling in his crimes,
Right.
creating this twisted legacy.
And like a trophy.
It's chilling to think about
It is.
that someone could get so much pleasure
I know.
from causing so much pain
Yeah.
that they would want to document it, preserve it.
It's hard to even wrap your head around.
It's a level of depravity it's hard to comprehend.
Definite.
And yet, as disturbing as it is,
Mm.
that footage gives us valuable insight
Yeah.
into the mind of a serial killer.
Right.
It helps us understand
Mm-hmm.
the role that fantasy and control play in these horrific acts.
Yeah.
The meticulous planning,
Right.
the cold detachment,
Like coldness is scary.
the almost theatrical staging of the crimes.
Like a performance.
It's like we're looking through a keyhole
Yeah.
into the darkest parts of the human mind,
In the abyss.
a place where logic and empathy have been replaced by something far more sinister.
It's just a scary thought.
And while it's tempting to just turn away
Yeah.
from that darkness,
To pretend it doesn't exist.
to pretend it doesn't exist,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to confront it,
I agree.
to try to understand what drives people to do good or evil things.
To try to understand human nature.
You're right.
These cases, as disturbing as they are,
Yeah.
they give us a chance to learn,
To learn,
to reflect.
to reflect.
They make us ask hard questions
Yeah.
about ourselves, about society, about the very nature of good and evil.
Why do some people turn to violence? What part does mental illness play?
Mm-hmm.
How do social and cultural things contribute?
It's complicated.
Those are tough questions.
We are.
There are no easy answers.
No.
But found footage, with its rawness, its honesty,
Mhm.
it gives us a place to start.
It does.
It gives us a look into the minds of the people who commit these acts of violence
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
who find themselves in these terrible situations.
Right.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle.
A puzzle.
Yeah, we have these bits of information, these clues,
Yeah.
and we're trying to make sense of something that just doesn't make sense.
Trying to find the meaning in the chaos.
And in that process, we have to face our own biases,
Oh, yeah.
our own ideas about good and evil, guilt and innocence,
Mm.
even about truth.
Truth can be slippery.
Found footage doesn't give us easy answers,
No, it doesn't.
but it makes us think more deeply
Mm.
about these really important questions.
It challenges our assumptions.
It reminds us that the world is complicated, unpredictable,
Mm-hmm.
that darkness can be lurking anywhere,
Yeah. Anywhere.
and that even in the face of tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
there are lessons to be learned,
There are.
there are insights to be gained,
We can grow from this.
and maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
we can find ways to prevent these things from happening again.
Hopefully.
So, listener,
Yeah.
as we wrap up our deep dive
Mm-hmm.
into these disturbing found footage cases,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay. I'm listening.
These stories are unsettling,
They are
but they also show us how strong the human spirit can be.
resilient.
We see it in the bravery of those students on the MV Sewell,
Right.
facing their fate with a mix of fear and defiance.
That faced it head on.
We see it in Susan Powell's determination to document her fears,
Yeah.
to leave a record just in case.
Like a message for the future.
We see it in the tireless work of law enforcement to get justice for victims,
Yeah.
and in all the people and organizations out there working to prevent violence and to support those who've been hurt by it.
Those people are heroes.
These cases, even though they're disturbing,
Yeah.
remind us that even in the darkest times,
Mm-hmm.
there's hope,
There is.
there's courage,
Yeah.
and there's a shared desire to understand,
Understand.
to heal,
To heal.
and to make the world a place where these tragedies are less likely to happen.
That's a beautiful thought.
So, listener, keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Keep searching for answers.
Mhm.
Keep the conversation going.
Don't let it fade away.
These stories are important.
They are.
They have the power to inform us, to challenge us,
To make us think.
and to inspire us to create a more just and compassionate world.
That's the goal.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a journey.
We'll be back next week with another case.
Looking forward to it.